Hi, this is Pete Lyons with Let's Play Salesforce, and tonight we actually have a channel first. We have a returning guest on the channel. So it's been, I think, a little over a year now, but we've got Mark Tossell on the line to talk with us a little bit about then and a little bit about now. So for anybody who doesn't know who Mark is or didn't see last year's video, Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us kind of a quick overview of where you were and how you got to where you were, say, about a year ago.
Yeah, hi Pete. So my name's Mark Tossell. I'd say about 3 years ago, I was unwell. I was unemployed, broke. Life wasn't going so great. And then I got hired to implement financial services cloud at a wealth management business. That led from one crazy moment to another. So we implemented Salesforce, built out process automation, Pardot marketing automation, and then got involved in Einstein Analytics. And as of about a year ago, we had just started a new business, Visioneer 360, Salesforce partners focused on the Einstein platform.
And I understand that you're also really active in the Bella Vista user group and different groups in Sydney. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so we started a new user group, or I guess admin group, out here in the western suburbs of Sydney. For those of us who live or work out west, it's quite a chore to get into the city for the Sydney user group. And so we saw a need and we started up a group out here. We're a little bit different. We generally meet on Saturday morning and we have bagels and coffee, and we have speakers, and we hang out and have a good time, and that's gone really well. I'm also really involved in the online community, so I like to try and share blog posts and share information as much as I can, try and help people. So I also love to present, and I've had a blast presenting on the subject of Einstein at World Tour in Sydney, Down Under Dreaming, user groups, and Dreamforce, and have really enjoyed that.
Awesome. And a little fun fact, the last time I was in Australia in late March of last year with Mark, we had dinner with Andrew Price, the original gangster of Einstein Analytics blogs and tutorials, and I got to eat my favorite Down Under meal of kangaroo. It was really good times. So I understand, though, that a lot has really changed in the last year for you. Can you tell us about a bit of the transition, especially like, going from, hey, I'm this guy, I'm just getting started in implementation, I might be a little bit over my head, to where you are today?
Yeah, look, it's been a pretty crazy journey. I originally started off implementing Salesforce, then became a business analyst, so very heavily focused on enabling business success using the Salesforce platform. But when we implemented Einstein Analytics, I guess that was about 2 years ago now, I really felt like I found my niche. I guess with the engineering background, I have a very curious and analytical mind. So just fell in love with that platform, and it was a real game changer. It was a real game changer as well for that business. And we realized that there was the potential to actually go to market with what we had learned in the analytics space and then the AI space. So we started the new business just over a year ago. We became Salesforce partners in the middle of last year, I think about July 2018. It's hard to believe we're already well into April 2019. So that's actually getting up near close to being a year of Salesforce partners. But it's been exciting. I got to go to the factory tour with Peter and some other friends last year, where we got to have a really cool kind of inside look at the roadmap and the product development side of things. We've got some amazing projects on the go. So just in the areas of financial services and particularly, and then a few others as well, where we're trying to really, innovate and push the envelope, which Peter, you're used to doing. I've got an amazing team. We're building out our team. And I try and surround myself with smart people so I look good, right?
Oh, and I'm laughing on mute. Yeah. To echo Mark's point, Salesforce has always had a strong commitment to delivering the features and functionality that their customers and partners ask for. And I feel that that's especially true for the analytics team. Could you tell me about some of your interactions with the product team and the way that you've seen it evolve over the last couple of years?
Sure. So I had the privilege of coming online when the product had just been renamed from Wave to Einstein, and they were developing the early stages of the UI. So it was no longer, all built in code, your JSON and SQL and XMD. So I was able to be probably one of the early users of the UI as far as those that did not have a background in its previous iterations as a code-based platform. So it's exciting to see the UI, and I'm sure you'll agree, Pete, to see the UI develop over the last year and a half to 2 years. And I think that, that mantra of clicks versus code, it is a tough one in the BI space because you are combining, many different data sources. You're manipulating and transforming the data often in quite complex ways. So it's a really challenging area, I think, to eliminate code, but they certainly have done an amazing job at minimizing the need for code. If I look at the interactions that I've had with the product team, I think there are two sides to that. One is where there have been problems. It's been great to see them mobilize their troops and address those problems really quickly. But even beyond that, the development of the product, I know that either through the community or through emailing the product team or through social media, there's been a lot of interaction there, both on the product side, but interestingly enough, also in the online learning side. So I think 2 years ago, Einstein Analytics was not an easy platform to learn, as far as there were materials out there, but they were scattered about. Of course, you had Pete Lyon's amazing video blog, which was a lot smaller then. But then, finding the materials you needed was tough. There weren't a lot of trailhead badges. But I'm really impressed with the way the team has developed their online learning library. And not only the materials, but the way that it's getting more and more structured, more logical, the way that it's put together, easy to access. And then from a product side, to see the features implemented that just make things quicker and easier for people like myself. So, for example, bringing in declarative binding. So in other words, the ability to point and click and create a binding without having to go into the JSON, at least in some cases, is one example of where they've really made a difference to the platform. But I spend a lot of my life in the data flow designer, the dashboard designer, and I love what I do. But, sometimes it's been a case of, gee, if they could just do this or do that, it would save time, it would help prevent errors. And we've seen them again and again. I'm sure you have, Pete, really come to the party and improve things. And, it's tough. They have such a large feature list, I'm sure, in their backlog, and they have to prioritize that, implement it, test it, deploy it, etc. But they've really done an amazing job.
And please don't tell me in all this, clicks not code that you've lost your binding mantras.
No, I'm. It's funny you say that because, it's interesting that as much as they're moving towards that clicks not code model, I think in this platform there'll always be a need for some code, and I enjoy that challenge. I don't have any coding background whatsoever. So Pete was my original sensei, teacher around bindings, etc. And, I still enjoy that side of things, but I do like it when features are brought in that save time, because we are, thankfully super busy. We've got some amazing projects on the go, and sometimes it's not a question of not wanting to do something the long way. It's just more a question of having the time.
What are some features, not necessarily limited to clicks not code progression, but just in general, what are some features that you think the platform would benefit by?
Wow. How much time do we have? I know for me, I think that as in dealing with clients, one issue that we face is around connectivity. So often what we have to do is work with the existing connectors, whether it's an AWS S3 or whatever the case may be, Google BigQuery, etc. And we have to often achieve workarounds in the area of connectivity. Now, I think that Einstein is miles ahead of the competition as far as combining AI and BI, and also I think the aesthetics of the product, etc. But one area where I think there could be some improvement as far as for people like me to implement, and also just in really just getting it to the client and giving them what they need, would be around more connectors. I know that's something that they're constantly working on, and I think it's a constant battle for them. You know, what system do you choose to connect to? There's like millions of systems out there. We've had clients that it's astonishing how many systems they do have, and obviously you can't connect everything through a native connector. But I think that that's one area. And then there are just the little things, Pete, that are just kind of time wasting. Like if I want to take, if I'm changing the layout on a page, and if I want to move a bunch of widgets quickly and easily, right now I'm holding Command on my Mac and I'm clicking 15 widgets so I can move them all at once, right? So it'd be really cool if you could just do like a lasso, where you could just grab your mouse and select a whole bunch of widgets, your containers and everything else, and just move them easily. I know you've got the shift button where you can kind of reflow it, as it were, which is useful. Also, I know that sometimes in the data flow, it seems that rather than working out a solution, we're actually doing a workaround, right? So where you've got, for example, parents, no children, or even in areas like there's some things right now that are quite easy to do in the recipes, right? Like buckets, for example. That's really quick and easy to do in recipes, rather than, and I think we discussed this online, Peter, the other day, rather than having to do the whole case statement in the data flow. There was some talk about having something really cool, I thought, which was, as far as your left and right joins and in and out of joins in the data flow, to actually have that done visually. I think you saw the demonstration, or at least the concept of that, Peter. So I thought that was a really cool idea, just to make things a bit more intuitive and a bit faster for those of us who use the platform a lot. But also, in my mind, part of what I do is not just building stuff, but training up the people that are going to use it to be able to work with it. And it is a challenging, I think, onboarding process, still learning process, but much better than it was. I think that the more visual, the more intuitive we make the product, the better the take-up and adoption will be, the more effective it will be in the workplace. Another thing is around when you're combining multiple data sets in one widget. So whether we're going to do a co-group or a union, it doesn't take that long. But if it were visual, if you were just able to say, hey, I've got 3 data sets, I've got 3 streams coming in here, let's just grab these visually and pull them in, and rather than doing what I do right now, which is create 3 lenses, grab the SACWAL from each one of those lenses, take it into my text editor, do my groupings or my unions, bring those streams together, then bring it back in and test it and debug it. And I know, Pete, I think you and I have talked about that one as well. So those are just some things off the top of my head that come to mind. So much has been improved, even little things like making the dashboard designer more granular, in the sense of being able to have more control over where things are placed by increasing, I think, up to 50 columns, if I remember correctly. For me, the biggest game changer in my career with Einstein was the introduction of pages. I use pages all the time. It's a great functionality. They're continuing to develop that even putting in the page navigator instead of having to do it manually with links like we used to is another time saver. I think that one area that would be useful is they give you themes at the moment, which are handy. I like those. We've got more than we used to have. I'd love to be able to create a custom theme. So when I work with clients, I'm always branding the dashboard to their business. So I'll get their style guide or their colors guide from their graphics team, and then I'll grab those colors and I'll build them into the dashboard. And there are different ways of doing that, different shortcuts you can use. But if I could very quickly create a custom palette as a custom theme, that would be super handy. It would just be a real time saver. And that way too, if you wanted to change it globally for the whole dashboard, instead of going in and changing things kind of manually, you could just go into your custom theme, change it there, and everything would change. And hey presto, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, you have no idea how many times I've thought to myself, why is the default background color for a widget white? I never use that as my background color.
The very first thing that I do when I create a new dashboard is I go in, I increase the columns to 50, and then I change the standard widget to a transparent background, always, right?
Yeah, I do the 50 column thing. Sometimes it really depends on the build, but in general, I actually leave it at default because I feel that it forces me to be mindful of my real estate and to not...
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I have all those columns, I feel like I can just make an explosion of teensy charts.
Hey, I tell you another thing that I would really like is when I am using a granular, fairly granular layout, so I've got a lot of control over the X, Y, where things are placed. Sometimes it's a pain to line things up, right? So a ruler would be really handy, a movable ruler.
Yeah, and it's interesting that some of this functionality we had in the Classic Designer, and there were reasons that it went away because, well, there were reasons it went away. But just looking back on the experience of that, sometimes that pixel perfection was extremely challenging to work with, and I would find myself actually going into the JSON to properly align my widgets. And we used to have Zindex where we could layer things, and trying to get the system to understand which of those things you were trying to click on was a real nightmare. So while we could do a lot of really cool hacks because of it, Zindex had to die. But before we wrap up, Mark, I got one last question for you. So as somebody, who just like me went from, what's Salesforce? I don't want to sell stuff, to where we are now with just being deeply ingrained in the technology and it just being a part of our daily lives. What advice do you have to somebody who's transitioning either into Salesforce for the first time, be it from a technology background or not, or looking to make the move from already being in Salesforce and transitioning to Einstein Analytics?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I could say there. And people are welcome to visit my blog. I've got a few articles around that whole idea of reinventing yourself and transitioning, etc. But we have a great expression in Australia that you may have heard, Pete. It's called "have a go, you mug." Translate that into normal English, it just means just try. And that sounds so simple, right? But when I entered the Salesforce world, it was utterly terrifying. I was totally underqualified. I was not at all qualified. So many times I just wanted to chuck in the towel and say, mate, they need to hire a qualified consultant. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to break this, etc. But I just kept trying and I kept experimenting and I kept having a go, and I'd do something stupid or I'd fail and I'd just try again. I always felt there was no such thing as a stupid question. So I would just ask and ask and ask. In so many different ways, whether it's online or in the community or in social media or friends like you. But just to keep trying and persisting, you often feel like an imposter. I was at a meeting recently in San Francisco. We were discussing Einstein discovery, which I love, and I really get into all of the machine learning side of things now. And I'm sitting in the room with two people who have these incredible IT backgrounds, masters in computer science and 2 decades of experience. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I've been doing this for like 2 years. But you can either be intimidated by that and just let that make you quit, or you can get inspiration from that and say, wow, this is really cool. Look at the smart people that I'm in the room with, and the people that I get to hang with and learn from and hopefully share with. And so that's kind of the take that I've tried to have on it. It hasn't been an easy road. It's been tough. There are many times I've, had to dust myself off and get back up, and but just keep trying, keep persisting. Don't lose that curiosity, that passion for the technology, and you got to enjoy it. Honestly, if I didn't enjoy what I do, I wouldn't be doing it for 50, 60 hours a week and doing trailhead on weekends and stuff. So I think you've got to have that interest as well.
All right. You want to take us out, Mark?
Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.